Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So as you guys can see on the screen today, we're going to be doing another little Travis Gafford interview reaction. This one is a little bit old. I had this one pulled up on my computer for a while. I've been looking for a chance and opportunity to cover it because I think it's got some good stuff in it. It's from March 29th. That's over a week ago at this point, but that doesn't mean that the information isn't still relevant. That doesn't mean there aren't still some really interesting and good things to talk about, especially now that 100 Thieves has been eliminated from the playoffs and are now beginning to prepare for the summer split. I think a lot of this stuff is going to start to become more relevant. Obviously, this video is titled Papasmithy on the future of 100 Thieves mid lane and an apology to fans. So that's pretty interesting, pretty spicy. We'll see what's up there. Maybe they'll talk about what 100 Thieves plans are. I mean, obviously they were talking a little bit about headed into the playoffs, but also what's going on in the summer split. Is Ryoma now the full-time starter? Is DeMonte coming back? Are they getting rid of DeMonte? You know, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to hear about from Papasmithy. I think he is a good interview, so hopefully this will be good. Also, this is on Travis Gafford's YouTube channel, so make sure you go check him out if you guys have not already. But before we get into that, I just mention real quick, if you guys have not already, please take a second and smash that like button. I would appreciate it so much. It really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm, getting my videos and content out to more and more people, helping us grow. That would be absolutely awesome. Also, subscribe to stay up to date on all of my latest content so you guys don't miss out on anything we have going on in the near future, because we're going to have a ton of awesome videos, a ton of awesome content coming out. So with that being said, let's get right into this. Let's see what Mr. Papasmithy has to say. First up, I just wanted to say that his jersey that he's wearing, I think, is super sick. Obviously, 100 Thieves always does an awesome job on merch and apparel and everything, and I actually ordered that long sleeve jersey in that color. It's on its way coming in, so I'm going to be super hyped, super excited for that to come in, get to try it out, wear it and everything. So if you see me wearing one of those in an upcoming video, that's kind of what's up. I'm super hyped, I'm excited, but yeah, nice to see Papasmithy rocking that. Let's see what's going on. Travis Gafford, one of my favorite interviewers, probably one of my favorite content creators really in the LCS scene. What do you got to say?
So 100 Thieves, a team that has been dominating a lot of the conversation in the LCS recently because of some unfortunate losses and obviously the late split switch of players. So first off, let's talk about today. A clean 3-0 sweep over Dig. Was this what you all expected?
So before he gets into that, I just want to say that like how he talked about how 100 Thieves has been dominating a lot of headlines, a lot of talk in the LCS content recently. Like, yeah, I've had a lot of Cloud9, Team Liquid, TSM videos, obviously, because those are the teams doing the best. Those are teams still alive in the LCS playoffs. But of the teams eliminated, I've definitely been talking about 100 Thieves the most. One, because they have a really big fan base, probably the fourth biggest fan base in the LCS behind those other three teams that are still alive. And also, they just are kind of the most controversial. They have some of the most issues going on. They're like not a totally bottom dwelling team. They're not like a CLG or something that's just sucking. They have no stories to talk about. They've had a lot of ups and downs. They have roller coasters. They have controversial roster changes. There's just a lot of stuff to talk about with this team. Some of their big wins, some of their big losses. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a lot to talk about with this team.
I think you always have to leave yourself open for anything. This is actually our first playoffs best of 5 wins since I arrived, which is heartening. But we had a 2-0 head-to-head against Dignitas. We know these players really well. Obviously, Saligo and Fake God from being on the squad for a couple of years. And lost in the conversation is that a lot of our struggles were against the top teams. 1-5 in regular season against C9, TLTSM, and we only lost 7 games, right? So at the end of the day, definitely not a surprising victory. Definitely not one that we're all planning a big celebration afterwards. But on the one hand, like you mentioned, with kind of being at siege, it felt like it's kind of a reaffirmation that we're doing something right over here. If you check Twitter, they didn't seem to think much of that. But so that part feels good, but still all to prove. Still a lot to do, and we look to next week against TSM as that real test.
Yeah, I mean,
so definitely some issues I have with some of that going on. I mean, he's trying to like pat himself on the back and the organization and stuff. And in a sense, I get it. Yeah, they qualified for the top 4. There should be some sense of pride in enjoying that, and maybe they are doing some good things. But again, this is a team that has looked better than that throughout the season. This is a team that honestly has not been playing that well throughout the season. And yes, even though they're finishing top 4, they beat Dignitas, who's probably the 6th best team. So, I mean, they got lucky, or not even lucky, they earned the right to not have to match up against Evil Geniuses in the playoffs. But maybe they finished 4th, but maybe they're the 5th best performing team in a year where the LCS as a whole is kind of having a down year, because we have a ton of new faces coming in, a ton of teams going budget. Like, I don't know, being like the 4th or 5th best team, that doesn't really seem to me like a time to pat yourself on the back. This is a team that wants to go to Worlds, wants to have, higher aspirations, and they are a very talented team. They had one of the top 3 MVP candidates in FBI. They have what they would consider probably a world-class top laner in Someday. A really good support in Huhi, and a pretty decent jungler and closer. Yeah, they have a big kind of issue in the mid lane going on, but TSM has holes. Team Liquid has flaws. Cloud9 has some holes and flaws, and they found ways to patch that stuff up and play around it. So yeah, not necessarily the results, like finishing top 4. Yeah, that's awesome. But when you look at how these things happened, going 1-5 against the top 3 teams, never really pulling off a big win, then I don't know. I just don't necessarily love it. Because yeah, he could say, yes, there are some things going right, but when you look at the talent on your team, there's a lot of things that went wrong also. Like, yeah, you signed these players. I mean, you just signed the Golden Guardians roster. You had Someday already. But you didn't really get better over the course of the season. You didn't really exceed expectations hardly ever. As like a general manager, coaching staff, management staff, that's kind of a big disappointment for a season to me.
You say it's a real test. I mean, how worried are you about that, especially given that, as you mentioned, a lot of your losses were to these top teams? You're going to be facing one next week.
I mean, worried is not the word I would use right now, but at the end of the day, like, it's going to be a really competitive series. If we're going to win, it's not going to be a clean 3-0 like it is today. I have a lot of respect for TSM and what they've built there. We've scrimmed them a lot over the course of the year. Obviously, Tony was Bjergsen's coach a couple of years ago.
I want to skip ahead some of this a little bit.
So at the end of the day, we know they're a good team. They've kind of had
series that
the
we
reverse
already
trajectory
saw.
of us,
Spoiler
right?
alert, it was not a close series with TSM. Obviously, it was 3-1, but in the losses, 100 Thieves didn't look so good. In the wins, they didn't look so great either. I mean, that's kind of why people have a lot of questions about 100 Thieves and stuff. So I want to skip past this part and try and get maybe to talk about some of the more relevant stuff now that this playoff series is over, obviously. We'll see when Mr. Travis Gafford wants to speak next. All right, here we go. So here we go. We'll see what they have to say now. Nope, got it muted.
Great to see us execute today and move on in playoffs. Congrats to the team, etc. So, given that
this is one of the tweets I was talking about too. We expected to be top 4 going in the year. Great to see us execute today and move on in playoffs. Congrats to the team. And yeah, if you expected to be top 4 and you finish 4th, like, yeah, that's meeting expectations, but it's not exceeding it all. And again, I think there's definitely a case and argument to be made that towards the end of the season, they were performing worse than Evil Geniuses. There's definitely a case to be made that they are the 5th best team in the LCS right now, with a huge question mark at a very important position. So I don't know if I'd be resting on this top 4 finish if I was 100 Thieves.
expectation was top 4. Do you feel like today allows you to say that at least for spring, you guys hit the target, and now I obviously hope to surpass that, but was this the target? Do you feel like you've hit it?
I think it's a very good question.
I think there's so many targets that are like cold, like this is the finish, anything below. There's like emotional stuff, right? There's the fans being on your side. Like, it's such a complicated question. What I will say is that not being top 4 would be a real big disappointment, but the manner in which we stumbled so much trying to find ourselves and then beat Dignitas 3-0, like, this is not the point where I'm like, like, joke's on you, we had it all solved. Like, at the end of the day, roster changes and every change I make, we make, right? Like, at the end of the day, I know people think it's all me, but very little of it is a Papa choice. But all decisions that were made together were with the goal of winning best of 5s against great teams. Like, that's, if you're not first in spring, then what are you doing, right? Like, you need to work on that, because at the end of the day, we look at Worlds as our goal. Top 4 is obviously very close to Worlds. Top 3 go through to Worlds, but the head-to-head between the top teams, that winning a best of 5 against TSM, like, that would kind of be the glimmer we're looking for, as a start when it comes to...
And I think that's kind of a lot of the issues that people have with 100 Thieves right now, is that, like, when you look at it, TSM lost 3-1 to Team Liquid, and a lot of people really don't consider that series that close. A lot of people have Team Liquid as pretty big favorites coming in against TSM again, and TSM then went on to 3-1 roll 100 Thieves, and yes, it was 3-1, but it very easily could have been a 3-0. And you know, 100 Thieves just feels like they are very far away from third place. Like Papasmithy saying, top 4 go, you know, top 3 go to Worlds. We're top 4. We just got to make some minor adjustments. But I think a lot of people feel like they need to make some big adjustments. And with Ryoma in the mid lane, I know a lot of people have told me, like, when you're going up against Perks, Jensen, and Power of Evil, and you have Ryoma, you're fighting an uphill battle from the beginning. And I definitely agree with that.
To a successful spring, and at the end of the day, yes, you know, we're top 4. We thought we would be at least top 4, but kind of like the business starts here. You know,
Right.
it's not a joyous occasion.
You referenced some of the changes and said as much as people expect it's you, it's not entirely you. This kind of goes back to something that we were talking about on Hotline League this week. Mark and I both said that we kind of felt like this Ryoma versus Damonte thing is a bit of a red herring, given that a lot of the issues, other analysts have said this as well, a lot of the 100 Thieves issues in your losses have not necessarily felt like, well, if only they just had a different mid laner. And also I think a lot of fans...
Now, I don't entirely agree with that. Now, if you want to say that if you're comparing Damonte to Ryoma and you take a look at a lot of their losses and say, wow, if this was Ryoma instead of Damonte, I don't think it would really have anything. But just to say, I don't think a different mid laner could have impacted this, that is just not true. If you had Perks or Jensen or Power of Evil on this 100 Thieves team, I think this team would look a lot different. Now, when you're alternating between two very mediocre, sometimes a little bit above average, sometimes below average mid laners, and trying to rotate them out, yeah, there's usually not going to be that big of a difference between them. I think both of these guys are very mediocre, and I think both of them are not good enough for a team that wants to consistently be attending Worlds. But that does not mean that mid lane is not an issue, which, yeah, and I don't know if that's what Travis entirely meant, but that's what he said, so I don't know if I agree with that.
have thrown a lot of criticism at you and at Zix as the reasons for this.
We're the faces of the team, right? Like, if they're going to throw criticism, it should be to us.
Well, and that's to my point here is I get you guys want to be the tanks on this, but in some of my conversations with the players and interviews, it feels as though this was a general consensus within the team. And so getting you don't want to throw your players under the bus, I'm kind of curious if you can chime in on, like, was this something, how much of this was you and Zix unilaterally versus how much of this was something that was born out of a general conversation with many members of the team?
This is a really good question, something a lot of people have been
I think
wondering about.
Putting percentages on it and things like this, like,
A
He doesn't want to
fraction?
answer.
Could we do a fraction? Just kidding.
Bob,
I get,
does not
but
want
like,
to answer this.
what I think fans don't appreciate is that you make a roster change, right? And it's not cut and dry. Like, it wasn't a, this guy's out forever, this guy's in forever. It was, like we mentioned, just a tryout. We had a lot of issues in practice and on stage at the time. Our quality of wins, you know, we were 8-4, but our quality of wins was not where we wanted it to be.
Totally agree.
It was one of those things where
That's
it's
some
like,
very
we're
rough
8-4,
wins.
but as, you know, our analysts have said, it could have been, you know, 4-8. You know, it could have
Totally
been
agree.
all over the place. Even from kind of week 1-2 of regular season, it was like, we're holding on to beat COG without Broxer. And it's like, I'm not tweeting, you know, like, ecstatic about that at the end. Like, that's a really big disappointment for where our goals are. So obviously there were multiple issues around that, and you spend time trying to diagnose it. You don't make a snap decision. Obviously the fans only see when it's executed, but you try to consider, like, all of the angles there. And I think the things the fans don't see is, for example, this, like, did you consult the players or not? Like, let's say I did the statement we did, and it's like, hey, by the way, we did this, we did this, we did this. Like, I show all the work, every single thing we did, exhaustively. Isn't that just really dog to a player that I care a lot about, and Damonte, you know, who's still on our team, who's still competing for the spot? Like, at that point, it's, if he's ever subbed back in, he's like, well, like, these old guys said this, and then this happened, and then, like, even this person's against me. Like, that's not a correct process, you know? Like, that's not something you can do. You can't sell out your own players. And that's why if I have to be the Trojan horse that goes in the front and takes all of it and allows the players to focus on their stuff, then that's what I'll do every time. You know, I think Inero does it really well as well, where he tries to wear as much as he can. And I think you have to do that. So, you know, that's the role I'm in. And I mean, the only personal kind of struggle I have is I've built my career on integrity. You know, I stood up to Riot in 2016 for caster rates. Like, I don't think I'm a duplicitous person. So benefit of the doubt is always swingy. And I understand in this case where it felt like a straw too much, or 100 Thieves as an org overshadows me, or maybe I've been out of the limelight too long. I got a ankle injury and I'm 34, so maybe I'm just past it. But it definitely, if everyone jumps to the worst possible conclusion that it's nepotism is the word they love to use.
Yeah, it's a new word that people are using, I guess. Yeah.
So that's the funny part. I mean, a couple funny things there. One of the top comments on this video is like, wow, I can't believe Papasmithy's only 34, which that's funny. I wasn't sure how old he is. That's interesting to know that he's 34. Another big thing is that obviously he didn't really answer Travis's question when Travis was asking, like, was this you? Was this Zix? Was this a team decision? What's going on? Why did you put Ryoma in? He kind of just dances around that. So, it's a good question. I get why he doesn't answer it. He gives a very good answer, a very long-winded answer about, why maybe how transparent the fans want him to be isn't realistic and wouldn't really be responsible, and I think that's great. Also, I think it's interesting how he randomly kind of name drops Inero in here, and Inero's a guy who's very, very well respected throughout the whole community and scene right now, and I honestly am kind of been vouching for Inero to be the next 100 Thieves coach. I think he would do an amazing job with this roster. I think, honestly, he's a better coach than Zix, and I think Zix has kind of overstayed his welcome with 100 Thieves, so interesting little tidbit there. Could that be something going on? Maybe. Maybe it was random. Maybe it's not. Maybe he was on the tip of his tongue for some reason. But then also talking about nepotism, because that's obviously a thing that a lot of people have been talking about, that Papasmithy coming from Osh, Ryoma coming from Osh. Why does this kid get his first chance? Why is he getting another chance? He's not looking that good. And I don't know. It's a tough discussion. It's tough. I get what people are saying, but I don't know.
But it's like, if they're calling me a nepotist and it's all me, and the players are, out of sight, out of mind from that and getting to practice and get better, then it's worth it. In my books, even if it's honestly not that easy some of the days.
Yeah. I totally understand what you mean as you're kind of explaining the process on how you approach this stuff.
I will say that
it
was a multi-week process, and a lot of different things were diagnosed, and we didn't think that we had solved all the team's issues with any one change.
That's good to hear. At least that obviously it's been a long process. That's not surprising at all.
And then a trial started from there, and then obviously the story kind of went the direction it did, and I have to appreciate that. But at the end of the day, we have to make every decision to finish top 3, and if we're not doing that, then we're doing everybody a disservice, even if a decision might be unpopular.
So in the interview that I just saw at FBI do with Tigris, I think he was expressing satisfaction with Ryoma, felt like he'd grown a ton, done all this stuff. Obviously, there's a decent amount of Damonte fans out there, and so I guess one of the questions is, like, fans probably want to know if there's a chance that we're going to see Damonte back again, because if not, it's like, does he end up playing an academy during the summer? Does he?
That's what we're all wondering, Travis.
Be on another LCS team, if people do want to see him in LCS. So I don't know to what extent you feel comfortable speaking to his future. Or perhaps even if we're not talking specifically about Damonte, just how solidified you are on this lineup of 5 players.
They always get you with the ad right before the good stuff. We got a skippable one at least. All right, back to the action.
I think that's always hard to commit to, both from like a competitive integrity standpoint.
Like I said, I'm not expecting him to get much of an answer.
Great if we can surprise with a roster change, 24 hours before the game or something. But I don't want to like lead people on, or it feels weird to say that, but I think it's just esports is a weird space compared to traditional sports, where like you can sub someone out, like, oh, this guy didn't pull up well in training today, so this other guy's playing, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But in esports, it's always a bigger thing where it's like, well, there had to have been an explosion for there to be a roster change.
Yeah.
And then that's, I don't know what to do about that. I think that's just the reality, because branding, and we're all online, with the same.
I agree. This is weird to an extent a lot. Like you'll see in professional sports, like football, basketball, soccer, whatever, lineups change all the time, and kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it's because there's less players on a League of Legends team, or because the scene's so young, or because we're so attached to the players, or what. But yeah, roster moves are seen as like a bad thing and are seen as a really, really big deal when they're not so much necessarily in other sports. I don't know if they have a longer history or they have a better track record of working out, or what exactly it is.
Watch on the streams, we all chat in the same Twitch chat. There's no separation. I think that's just the way it has to be.
Well, and there's just less roster changes in esports. I feel like, especially in League. So like when you do see something like this, it feels extreme, you know.
And I would love for it to be more normalized, but maybe that's not real. You know, I don't have all the answers. I never will pretend that I do. But you know, Tanner is scrimming with the academy team. Our academy team is a really good academy team. If anything changes, if we see anything, or if we feel like we need to bring him in, like, Tanner is a wonderful human. He has some of the best intangibles you'll ever get out of a player, and he's already been effective with these 4 players, you know, and 3 of them last year and 4 of them this year. So there's no hesitation to bring him in if that's what we deem best, but I don't want to sit here and get anyone excited. You know, at the end of the day, we did 3-0. We haven't made top 4, so we're going to go into scrims on Tuesday, you know, with Ryoma, and what happens.
Yeah, so to me, that does not sound good for Damonte. Obviously, he's dancing around the questions again, which I fully expect. Obviously, he can't really commit to anything, especially if even in his own mind he hasn't committed anything, but maybe he has. But again, yeah, I do not think that sounds good. It sounds like, they're fine with finishing top 4. They're happy with being better in Dignitas. Overall, it seems like they are happy with the level that Ryoma has brought to the team over a guy like Damonte. You know, he's saying that Damonte's ready to go if they ever need him, but he's not saying that, like, yeah, we're going to continue to, like, trial him and stuff. It just sounds like, you know, for the time being, and now, especially headed in the summer split, that Damonte is the academy mid laner and Ryoma's the starter, and that's just how things are now. So this doesn't really seem like anything temporary. It seems like we shouldn't really be expecting Damonte back anytime soon. Now, does that mean Damonte's going to be headed to another team? Does that mean he's going to stay in academy? Who knows?
From there, happens from there.
Very good. Sure well, I do appreciate the transparency as much as you feel you can provide. Is there anything you want to say to any of the 100 Thieves fans, especially now that you've placed top 4 and you've got an exciting match ahead of you next week?
I'm sorry that I couldn't. I feel like there were a lot of times this season where I wasn't able to reach our fans, and I think part of that is because I had such high expectations of what this team was pound for pound, and after lock-in, it was always, okay, we need to improve. So I never wanted to be like, rah, rah, because then people would be like, but it wasn't that clean. And I'd be like, yeah, I noticed, you know? And I've tried to link with my coaches. We have a strategy and analytics department. You know, we have a big department here trying to audit what we're doing, what the enemy is doing, and try to get better from that. And we haven't nailed it every time, you know? And I would never represent that we have, but the process is something that we look back on and we understand why we made the changes we did, irrespective of losses. And I know that doesn't matter. And if we lose, I accept any flame sent this way, but I hope we can find ways to connect with you guys better, you know, bring you guys in. I think the Heist with the group interviews has done a good job of bringing in the vibe, but it really is only the player vibe. And the vibes here are good, and we know what our goal is. And at the end of the day, we take on TSM. What happens from that happens from that, and then we reload for 2021 summer when we're eliminated. So at the end of the day,
so obviously we know what happened against TSM. Things did not go good. So like Papasmithy said, the vibes are good at 100 Thieves. That's awesome to hear. They're getting ready to reload for summer 2021 now at this point. And yeah, his apologies to fans were just, yeah, sorry that he couldn't be as rah-rah as maybe he wanted to, because yeah, things never really were as good. Yes, they had a successful lock-in tournament, but they did lose that series to Cloud9 and they didn't win the tournament, so they never really got to celebrate there. And yes, they did have a good start to the LCS season, but things were a little bit shaky, and then they ended the regular season a little bit poorly, and then playoffs haven't gone that great either. So, he did talk about how he sees the potential in this team and thought they had a very good roster and wanted such great things for them, and that's what everyone wanted. That's what all the analysts, what all the fans, what everyone wanted, and that's kind of why I think people are so disappointed right now in 100 Thieves, in Papasmithy, in Zix, in all these guys, because people do see the potential and talent on this team, and the players are not playing well together. They're not getting better, and 100 Thieves just has some really weird stuff going on, and I don't know. It seems like a lot of these things aren't going to be fixed going into the summer split, especially if they keep the same roster, if they keep the same coaching staff. My expectations for 100 Thieves are not going to be that high. But that is pretty much it for this video today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I would definitely appreciate if you dropped a like on this video. It really helps me out the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment down below. What do you think is going on with 100 Thieves? Do you think they're going to get better headed into Summer Split? Do you think they're going to get worse? Do you think they should go with Ryoma, Demonte, definitely an entirely new mid laner? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on my latest content. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!